Here comes tomorrow, shining with promise, bright, brave new worlds for you to explore. If you don't like it, just hang around, cause tomorrow's tomorrow will reset the score. You can fight to turn the tide, try to rewrite, or just take flight, but you can't change the simple fact that it's where all your hopes are hiding. Here comes tomorrow.
Hello, homos, sapiens, and superior alike. My name is Josephine Reisman.
And I'm Becca Petunia.
We are two trans women here to talk about non-binary writer Grant Morrison's Turn of the Millennium comics run with the X-Men and what it tells us about finding joy in a world that hates and fears us. In other words, here comes tomorrow.
And you know, Josie, tomorrow we're going to be recording about better arcs of this series. So can tomorrow come already?
Yeah, here comes. Let's just bring it on tomorrow. I need it. But today, no, we are talking about probably the most hated issue of this run. I can't think of one that people bring up. It's sort of like this is like, even if you don't like the new X-Men, it's like a classic album that has that one track that everyone agrees, like, why did they even bother to put that in there? You know, like, even if you don't like new X-Men, this is worse than the rest of new X-Men. But that comic we're talking about today is Dust. And I would love it, Becca, if you could give a brief little rundown of what happens in this comic.
Dust is New X-Men issue 133. It is written by Grant Morrison with art by Ethan
Everyone's
Van
favorite.
Siever. Ethan Van
Van
Siever.
Siever.
And we'll talk a little bit about Ethan Van Siever's take on this comic, because he's said some things about it. And I should say the inks are by Norm Rapmund.
It almost feels gross to describe what happens in this comic.
Okay. I'm gonna do the best I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Content warnings for Islamophobia throughout this episode. Content warnings through brown people phobia.
Yeah,
I don't even know what to call, like, what the term is for that. Just racism?
Just racism. Let's just say racism. How about that?
But Wolverine is in Afghanistan rescuing a mutant by killing a bunch of slave traders in Afghanistan. He rescues a mutant named Dust, who is
Dust.
her power is that she can turn into sand because she's Muslim. Anyway, then he meets Phantom X there, and Phantom X is like, hey, I'm gonna bribe you so you can help me, or not bribe, what's the word I'm looking for? Make a deal with you. If you help me, I will reveal secrets about your past, and that will be explored later in the Assault on Weapon Plus storyline. Professor Xavier and Jean Grey are going to Mumbai for some reason that is not told to us, and they are flying commercial to Mumbai, despite Xavier being a multimillionaire and having
with a fleet of planes that we see all the time.
That we see all the time. He's flying commercial, and Xavier uses his mind powers to stop a Pakistani terrorist from doing 9/11 too.
Yeah, from blowing up a nuclear weapon on the plane, I guess.
Well, and also hijacking. It's unclear. Xavier hostage manages this situation perfectly.
Yeah.
That was sarcasm.
Yeah.
And tells the Indian government that they can arrest these Pakistanis, but he has brainwashed the Pakistanis to never do harm again, but also expects that the Indian government won't harm the Pakistanis. Then they go to X Corp, which is staffed entirely by non-South Asian X-Men. And
well, they have an Indian.
They have an
American
Indian. They have the wrong kind of Indian, but
yeah,
he's there.
It's like a bad joke. I mean,
Yes.
they literally have a different guy named Thunderbird who is Indian, and he's not there.
Correct.
Nope.
He's in Ambient Magnetic Fields, a different story arc. Then they discover that Dust has the power to turn into dust. And then the comic the comic doesn't just end. How could I forget the plot point, which is
Yeah,
Xavier's
something actually does sort of happen. The dance is the
Xavier Xavier's marriage to Lilandra gets annulled. This is also the comic where Xavier gets a divorce.
From then on out, Charles Xavier is the most divorced man in the X-Men. He's competing with Scott because Scott's not quite divorced yet. So, it's neck and neck, but
I almost forget that that ending happens. I was literally like, and then
I
it just
forgot
ends.
too. I forgot too. Like it ends with this thing that has nothing to do with dust. It's just like the phoenix egg has hatched
And
and
we
soon all will be consumed. And you're like, that has nothing to do with what we just talked about. But anyway,
we also just we'll get into
yeah, go ahead.
more. I know I'm getting a little into commentary during my summary because how can you
That's fine.
not?
So am I. How can you not? But yeah.
We won't see Dust again in this book until the second to last arc, which
Yeah.
is Planet X. We will not see Dust again until Planet X. She does become a major character later in New Mutants Volume 2, but
Here, not much.
anyway,
Yeah.
Dust is here.
Dust
And
is
you know
here.
who else
So
is here? You know who
yeah,
else
we
is
have a
here,
very
Josie?
special guest who we're very excited to have to help us talk about this issue and the issues about the issue, and then hopefully some pleasant things that are more exciting and fun than post 9/11 bigotry. That guest is Doc. Doc is a writer, comics expert, talking before, and I think we can say that Doc has a doctorate in Doctor Doom. Very, very well studied in Victor Von Doom and the real antagonists of the Marvel Universe, which is the Fantastic Four. Doom, as we all know, should win, and those pesky four keep getting in his way. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And yeah, so I was talking a bit about your background as a comics fan, but I'm
Mhm.
curious what you might want to share about your background that helps us understand how smart you are, how smarter you are about such things than Grant Morrison was.
Oh, sure, sure.
And us. And I acknowledge that you're smarter about this than us.
And us, for that matter,
No, no,
certainly.
not
Yeah.
not at all, not at all. But yeah, so my name is Aisha, but I go by Dr. Von Gloom in the social media sphere. You can call me Doc for short. So yeah, I'm like a self-professed like Doctor Doom academic. Big, big fan of Doctor Doom in the accursed Fantastic Four. So that's I think over the years taken different forms. Becca and I became kind of friends through that kind of frame of interest. So I've done like a lot of Doctor Doom archival work, of lots of online commentary. I've done some book reviews. I have like an old pet project on the back burner for a really long time that's with Doom as like the focal point, like a deep dive into like the intersection of like marginalization, specifically racial
Mm-hmm.
trauma and comic book villainy and like the moral ambiguity that's like accompanying that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, big fan. I'm a huge like Doctor Doom nut. I'm working on a podcast right now called Doomsplained, which is going to be like a deep dive on Doctor Doom. But yeah, just generally, like the depiction of marginalized identities in the comic book sphere has always been something that I've been really interested in. And I'm sure the outgrowth of that came from like this initial younger impulse to want to see yourself reflected in stories that you read.
Mm-hmm.
As a brown girl, as a Muslim woman, but just generally, I think with comic books, there's such an interesting like potential for empowerment, quite literally. But also,
Mm.
I'm almost like more interested in like the idea of making human suffering writ so large in these like really larger than life stories. I think that's really,
Yes.
really fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's true. The title is accurate. I do have a doctorate, which is more than we can say about Doctor Doom himself.
It's
Doctor
I
true.
Doom is ABD
Yes,
Doom, really.
yes,
Yes.
yes, exactly. I mean, not for lack of trying. I know if he hadn't blown his face off, he would have done wonders in academia.
I still buy the Jack Kirby thesis that his face has like a tiny scar on it and he wears the
I
mask because he's super vain.
I agree. I mean, I think out of all the interpretations of Doom scarring out there, if I had to rank them, I'm not gonna. This is not a Doom scarring ranking podcast,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
the burn is like my least favorite because I think it's such a it's like giving like sitcom joke with like him like
Well,
burning his
with
face.
disability also, it's just
I
sort of saying
know.
like, oh, that's so hideous.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of like assumption that are just like disfigurement equals evil is just like not a thing. But just like it's such a great neurotic thing for him to, because it's like the scar means failure, and failure is something he cannot have.
Right.
And it's just
Right.
fascinating. Like it's almost
Okay.
less, yeah, sorry. We're getting
No, no, no.
distracted.
We will get back to Doctor Doom. I really do
Yes.
want to,
Absolutely, absolutely.
because Doctor Doom plays an interesting counterpoint to Magneto, who also
Definitely.
is not in this issue, but we talk about in this
And
Yes.
podcast.
and an
Yes.
interesting counterpoint to September 11th in our
Well,
Oh God, please.
oft spoken about
Oh,
on this
A.
show.
Michael Straczynski's
yes.
patriotic duty. But
Oh,
anyway,
yes.
Doc, I wanted to ask, when did you first encounter the Morrison run
Yeah.
on X-Men, and what do you make of it as a whole?
Yeah, so I think my introduction to comics and X-Men was probably early on. I was a young wee babe. My uncle had like a lot of comics around us when we were little. I remember flipping through stuff. Like he used to get like Wizard Mag sent to his
Ah,
house.
yes,
That
yes.
that old thing. I think we watched like Fox X-Men at his place. I remember. Famke Janssen, Jean was a very formative for my younger
Ah,
cousins and I. I don't think I got into X-Men proper for a while. Like my around the same time, my brother was like obsessed with the Sam Raimi movies. We saw them like in theaters through
oh,
that.
The Spider-Man ones.
Yeah, the Spider-Man ones. Yeah. That was kind of like my gateway drug to stuff. Like we became absorbed in all levels of Spider-Man, like to the degree that we saw Turn Off the Dark on Broadway. It was that serious. It
Me
was
Oh,
that
I'm
too.
serious. Yes.
so
Me too.
jealous. I was living in New York the whole time it was running, and I kept going, I'll see it eventually. I'll see
And
it
then they got rid
eventually.
of it. Yeah.
I know. I'm so jealous.
It was an experience for sure. But that was like so much because my brother was obsessed with it. So like just by
Yeah.
osmosis, I knew so much and I still to this day know too much about Spider-Man. But like once I kind of was like, okay, let me like check out some of the stuff for myself. It was kind of in that capacity. So I remember I read like a lot of like, that like the big hit stuff in comics as I was kind
Hmm.
of getting older. Like I remember like, like Long Halloween, Brian K. Vaughan, Runaways.
Yeah, we're of a similar
Yeah,
generation. There were classics that were passed
right.
around. These
Yeah.
things that were seen to be relatively
Yes.
self-contained and relatively consistently exciting, as opposed to most runs of comics, which go woo woo woo
Yeah,
woo.
for sure.
Yeah.
I
But
I
anyway,
I
so
think it was
okay.
Claremont X-Men first for me, which I was obsessed with. Claremont's Purple Prose to this day lives very warmly in my heart. But it was in that context that I read Morrison's X-Men and you know,
It's very different from Claremont's
very much
X-Men.
so.
That
And
is,
I think Morrison makes
yeah,
that
that
very
was
clear. I
deliberate.
remember listening to your guys' manifesto about it. It was just yeah, interesting. But it
Yeah.
was definitely made an impression, in some ways. Some ways good, but quite honestly, mostly bad for reasons that we're going to get into.
When were you? I'm curious, when in time when were you reading this? Because I read them as they came out.
Yeah,
Becca read them in like
right,
2014. And those contexts are very
for
different.
sure.
When did you
I
read?
think it was probably maybe slightly before Becca. I think it was definitely like when I was like old enough to kind of recognize this stuff. So I think it maybe it was like early
Sure.
2010s, I
So
think.
like Obama era type.
I believe
Yeah,
so because like
yeah.
I'm trying to contextualize it. It was like high school, college, and that was like around the time that I was like
Yeah.
in high school going into college stuff.
Sure, sure, sure,
So
sure.
yeah, it was like around that time.
Okay. So yeah. That
Hmm.
makes sense. Okay, great. So you didn't like it. I take it.
Well,
Didn't work for
Mixed
you.
bag.
Were
Yeah.
mixed bag. Yes, Becca.
can I just say, like, I wanted to have Doc on the show because Doc is super smart and super knowledgeable about comics and all of these things. And like I said, she and I go way back. She was just reminding me about the time we played Marvel Phase Rip together in
I don't
like
even know what
20.
that is.
It was the official Marvel role-playing
Ah.
game released by CSR in
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
80s. I really wanted to have Doc on the show, and not to put Doc in a box here, but Doc, you are, as you said, you are Muslim.
Mm.
You are Pakistani,
Yes.
and so much of this issue
Yeah.
is, like we said, very Islamophobic and very anti-brown people in general, and weirdly mean,
Very
Yeah.
anti-Pakistan.
really
Like on
mean
a
to
very
Pakistan, which is so funny to me because it absolutely just feels like Pakistan catching strays. Like it's not, we weren't
we weren't
at
at
war
war.
with
Right.
Pakistan. But
Well, I mean,
we were,
it
but
gets
yeah, that gets
complicated.
complicated. But you know
Yeah.
what I mean is
I
like,
know what you mean that like this was this period when there was a lot of it's post 9/11, so there's a lot of Islamophobia in general. But Morrison choosing to really pick on Pakistan in this
Yeah.
specific but not informed way does feel weird to me.
but
I don't know what the story is behind
Ye-
that.
the other thing too is like, when you mentioned, Josie brought up like reading these comics, when they came out, and like, you're like closer to my age than Josie's age. But you were telling me, like, I mean, if you don't mind reiterating this on the
Yeah.
podcast, like, even you as, being 5 years old when September 11th happened, like,
Yeah.
how you as a Muslim person were affected. You lived in New York City at the time, like,
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like even this issue is interesting to talk about in that regard because it's like such a product of its time. This post 9/11 white impotence, really, and fear and frustration towards
Mm,
Afghanis, towards really Muslims in totality, and the
yes,
effort to make Muslims as this homogenous monolith. And it's really, interesting to talk about, like, as a Muslim living in the US and in the West generally, that experience is to live in the shadow of like a post 9/11 society. You always
sure.
have that ball and chain tied to your ankle, especially in the reflection of yourself that you see in popular media to this day. To this
Mm,
day,
yeah.
I think I probably was even aware of dust really early in comic book reading because of that. But when I was old enough to kind of seek out and have like the curiosity and wherewithal to look for things rather than just consume kind of comics. And even on like, revisiting this issue, it's just as embittering as it was like back then. But yeah, I feel like it's really fascinating to talk about because my first day of kindergarten was literally 9/11, and that uncle I
You're
mentioned,
kidding.
yeah, the uncle that I mentioned that was really into comics, he picked me up from school early that day. So it was
Wow.
because of everything that everybody was hearing about. So it's
Right, right, right,
yeah,
right.
it's a very interesting thing to kind of revisit because it's
And
yeah.
when yeah, while you were 5 and that was happening, and then 6 when this issue was
Mm,
coming out and you weren't reading it then, it's so funny. I have no specific memory of reading this issue other than feeling like it wasn't really about dust. Like you see this striking
yeah.
image on the cover,
Yes.
and I had forgotten how brutally racist it was because, honest to God, not that I was feeling that way, but that was just the media water. Like that was just what everything
Yeah.
was at that point.
Yeah.
So I remembered it being kind of questionable, but from 2025, it hits me especially hard how brutally of its time it is. At the time, it felt like, okay, well, here's just another Islamophobic
Right.
thing, but like it sticks out like a sore thumb in the rest of this run.
no,
Yes,
no, no.
Becca.
Laughing because like, boy, isn't it awful that we live in a world where, young Josie was like, "Oh yeah, just another Islamophobic
Well, it's not
thing."
like I was for it, but it was like
No, no,
that
no.
was the
I
media.
hear you. I hear you. And
Ugh.
again, like, but that's why I'm laughing because like it shouldn't be that common to just be like another Islamophobic
Mm.
thing.
No, I want
Muslims are just people.
Well, yeah, but briefly, originally one of the first people I asked to this pod was an Afghan woman I know who lives in exile here, who got out of the
Mm.
country, and it was so interesting. We had this conversation, and I was talking. She doesn't read comics, but she was talking about American culture, and she had started watching 24, the
Oh,
TV show 24, and she was in the first season, and she was like, "I really like this show," and I was like, get ready for the second season because I don't think you're going to be too happy with it. And she's like, why? And I was describing what was happening. I was like, 24 became kind of synonymous with
yeah.
Islamophobia. And what was so interesting was she was like, why would people? I told her about how Antonin Scalia cited 24 in a Supreme Court decision,
God.
and she was
Yeah.
baffled. She was like, it's
Yeah.
fantasy. Like this is fantasy, and but that the whole country became we were overtaken by fantasy. But
Right,
anyway, I'm
right.
rambling.
No, 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 absolutely. I mean, it's really funny that you even mentioned kind of like from the cover, because I feel like truly from the cover, even from the get-go, it invokes that perception of like the Muslim woman, right? Like quietly you can give kudos because it's an arresting visual, but the negative space with her is like her niqab and only her eyes visible. You
Yeah,
just know what you're going to walk into. And it's so fascinating because
yeah.
exactly around that time, like when looking back at it too, like there's so many articles and so much stuff where it's like lifting the veil, a veiled threat beneath the veil. Like there's like just such a obsession with that image of the Muslim woman in her garb. And it's just like such a point of obsession for like the Western perspective on Muslims. And I mean, I also don't know if this is intended. I really think it could have been. It also reminds me a lot of that, that famous photo in National Geographic with that young Afghani
Yes, I
refugee
think
in the hijab, down to the green
yeah,
eyes.
during the 80s
Yeah, yeah,
war. I'm virtually certain that was an intended
100% right.
echo. And it's in bad taste. I mean, it's just not, but anyway. I'm
And that
curious. Yeah,
was, well, I was just going to say, that becomes like Dust's thing. And it's Dust's thing in here too.
Yeah.
We see her powers activate and I think Phantom X is like, yeah, they tried to take off her
or
veil and she turned into dust. And like she attacked them when they tried to take off her veil. And I guess
no,
presumably to,
he says burqa,
oh,
if I
And
recall
I think that's also
correctly.
really, I think it's so important to say this as well, where I'm just like, they constantly call it a burqa, right? But the thing that it
Yeah,
actually is a niqab. And the style,
is in
yeah,
the
and the
cob.
style, the way that it is like it's all black and you can just see the eyes and stuff. That is more in line with like the Saudi Arabian styling of the niqab. But it's interchangeable. Like they constantly call it a burqa. And the burqa, as Afghani women wore it, was like it was like kind of you could see the eyes with like a little bit of stuff. It'd be blue, but it means the same thing, which is what I'm saying with like this homogenous kind of perspective on Muslim women. Even the fact
Hmm.
that she is dust, but really actually she's sand. Like if we didn't have a guy running around in the Marvel universe called Sandman, I know she would have been like Sand Woman. Like and then been singing like
Sandwoman.
Arabian Nights or something. That's the kind of level of
Yeah, that's what we're
ridiculousness we're
working
at right
with
now.
here.
but also like, so like I said, Dust becomes a major character in New Mutants Volume
Mm.
2, and there are pros and cons, and I don't think I don't know if you've read New Mutants
I may
Volume 2,
have. I've
Doc.
read some later Dust stuff, so I think that may have been part of it.
But there's the whole plot with Dust is really just like that
Oh yes.
stereotypical story where it's like there's a girl who dresses, really
Yep.
skimpy and she's like, "Why do you let men tell you to dress like
Oh
this?" And
God.
Dust is like, "Why do you let men tell you to dress like
Yeah.
that?" And ultimately they see eye
Yeah.
to eye and they learn to respect each other. And like I guess
Yeah.
I'm in favor of them learning to respect each other, but like
But
what
like,
is
come
Dust
on.
except for the veil? It's like we are so fixated on that
Yep.
niqab. And she is a person.
Hmm.
She,
Yeah, but all she does, she gets she when she pops up, spoiler alert, in Planet X, she's just used as a
Yeah.
tool. Like she's
Yep.
literally like she's a tool for dismantling Cerebra and doesn't have any characterization
Right.
there
Right.
really. And even here, like her only dialogue is speaking her name,
she's
her
a
new
Yeah,
Pokemon.
quite
I
literally,
guess.
like just saying her name. And I think it's so fascinating because like all she says is like not even in English, says it in Arabic, which by the way is not a commonly spoken language in Afghanistan.
I was about to say common spoken language in
They don't. They
Afghanistan.
speak
Come
Pashto,
on.
they speak Dari, they do not speak Arabic.
Well, speaking of language, Xavier does say that they're speaking
No, no, no.
Pakistani in
No,
one
Yeah.
scene.
worse. No, worse. The Pakistani terrorist says,
Yeah.
you're speaking
Yeah.
Pakistani?
That's
Yeah.
it. And that's not a language
No,
either.
No,
it
it's
is
not. He's not saying
not.
Urdu.
No, no, no.
No, but anyway, keep
Yeah,
going.
no, I just think, and I think that's a really cogent point too, because it's like that whole entire scene on the plane, I'm sure we'll kind of get into, but Dust in the later comics under different writers is treated exactly the way you'd guess white writers would be treating like a Muslim in the early 2000s. It's like
Yeah.
roommate thinking she's unfeminist and slut shaming other women on how they dress. The
Yeah.
white boys asking her out, but she can't because she's Muslim. And then the art just constantly her in a full body niqab, but you can still see like the shape of her boobs and like her hips. So what is the
Yeah.
point even?
Oh yeah, when they draw her like that, it upsets me. And again, I'm Jewish. Like I don't it's not even like targeted directly at me.
Like
Like
it's just so interesting because like
Yeah,
all like you're so right. Like she is objectively a tool and she is like kind of like a walking, talking. That's a Muslim, like right there. But it's also like so
right.
constantly in that white lens, you know? Like so it's just like she's gonna be
Yes.
garbed, but you're gonna be able to see like the swell of her breasts, or she's gonna
But
be
she's
yes.
sexy. Yeah, like they turned the niqab into like a superhero
Yeah.
costume, which is a terrible
Right,
idea.
right.
Um, it'd be like, I mean, now that I think about it, the fact that she was around doing that, it'd be not unlike if we like turned like a Jewish prayer shawl into some kind of
Yeah.
costuming element for superheroes. It's
Yeah,
bullshit.
it's grotesque, and I agree. Just like she is never more than kind of the fact that she's Muslim, but it's also kind of like
Yeah.
the I what she is constantly changing because she is like the in like the encompassment of like all Muslim stereotypes and all everything. Like the fact that it's like a Saudi niqab. She's speaking Arabic, but she's from Afghanistan. It's like all these kind of
Right.
things.
It's
and
just
then
the
the
whole
book
thing.
takes place in
Yeah,
Mumbai. Like
it's like
Right.
so. Yeah,
which also isn't
Well,
where
no, that's
Muslim people even like
well,
that's
there
a
are
in a
Muslim people
Hindu
there,
country.
but
Oh no,
yeah,
there
but
are,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's not a
The whole
predominantly
point is it's
Muslim.
Orientalism writ
hundred
large.
thousand
It's
percent.
Yeah.
Edward
Yes.
Said wept.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's just this vision of the totalitarian, anti-feminist, evil
Right.
East, and it really baffles me. Now, have you? I'm curious. Have any of you read? I didn't look very hard, but has Grant commented on Dust
I think
subsequently?
it's so interesting. So Morrison, from my understanding, has apologized for other crimes against other brown women that they have written, like Talia al Ghul in DC, which I don't know if
Oh
you've I mean,
yeah.
I feel like Morrison's Batman is like famous enough people are aware of that lovely
Can you
retcon.
tell us a little?
Yeah,
Can
tell
you
Yeah,
us
tell
about
us a
that. Yeah.
little? Because
sure.
I
I read all of Morrison's Batman
Yeah.
run, but I am not Muslim, so I'm sure there were triggers that were
Oh,
not
no, no
triggering
problem.
me.
It's like their crimes against Talia al Ghul are a little less like Muslim specific, more just general Orientalist and skeevy, in that Talia al Ghul and Bruce had a canonical romantic liaison years ago, I think in the Bat
That's during the
I
O'Neill
was
and
gonna say
Neil
Denny
Adams
O'Neill's
run.
kind of original graphic
Yeah.
novels where they get,
Hmm.
you know, they like make love and then they have a adorable little baby.
We get to see topless
Yes, very,
Batman.
very sexy,
Yeah.
very fun. So Morrison revisits that because one of the focal points of their Batman run was the introduction of Damian Wayne, or the reintroduction, rather, right?
Right. And Batman as actual father as opposed to
Right,
surrogate father.
exactly. So when they revisit that, it's then retconned for God knows what reason, besides racism, really, that Talia drugged and raped Bruce rather than it being a consensual relationship. Yeah, yeah.
Oh right, we're talking about that.
That's
Yes.
right. God, I actually forgot about that. I straight up
Yeah,
forgot
yeah.
about
So
that.
it's like in that
Yeah.
same way, where just like
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
things like being etched into kind of my memory as like a impressionable, you know, brown girl reading stuff. I'm just like, oh, someone who is, you know, from the vague area. Like, yeah, like Talia's like ethnicity is kind of vague. Like she's like Arab, maybe Chinese, sometimes she has like South Asian influences. But I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So now she's a rapist.
Now
So
she's
that's
a
lovely.
rapist
But
too.
it's
Yeah.
so interesting because there's no reason to write it
Yeah,
that way because you've already
No.
depicted them having presumably consensual
right.
sex. If you
Right.
want to tell the story that they had a
Right.
kid, couldn't you just be like the
I
condom
Right.
know.
broke?
It's
Like
so ridiculous. And I think it's really
that
and that's actually the
happens.
point why or that's actually what Morrison apologizes for. Morrison has been on record, I think, this is my understanding, that Morrison was just like, "Oh, sorry, my bad, guys. I didn't reread the stuff that I was referencing when I was like writing this comic." So just like
Oh, so that's the
yeah, that's the
apology. Got it.
apology. And I
Okay.
think it's
Got it.
just so I mean, I don't know. It's so
That's
interesting to me
telling.
that like at least in that regard, like maybe they were like, okay, like didn't do the research. Like I think in older issues, like with the stuff that happened in Dust, nothing on record that I can recall that Morrison apologized
Yeah, I
for.
haven't seen
But like
anything.
that, like the fact that even like Morrison doesn't remember that Pakistanis speak Urdu and they don't speak some made-up language called Pakistani.
Called
Like it's,
Pakistani,
I feel
yeah.
like in reading older issues, sometimes I would try to be like 10% charitable, like, okay, maybe it's harder to access information, maybe it wasn't as readily accessible as like on the internet. But besides that fact, it's like their job. Like an immediate contrasting example comes to my mind because I'm like eternally Dr. Doom-pilled. Back in like 2005, 2006, the late great Dwayne McDuffie was on the Fantastic Four. I loved
Yeah.
his writing, wonderful job, but he wrote a single,
Dwayne
yeah,
is terrific,
wonderful.
yeah.
He wrote like a single adjacent issue called Fantastic Four Special, My Dinner with Doom. I don't know if either of you have read it. Yeah,
I have not read
it's
I
that.
have not. Yeah.
I'm gonna seek that out because that
it's
sounds
wonderful.
great.
It's definitely like a top like Doom issue in my opinion. But basically, Doom
Mhm.
invites Reed Richards to like a little dinner date on his mother's birthday. Very adorable, very sweet. But what always stuck with me for years after I read it, was just how thoughtful it was. Like when they're having dinner, Doom tells Reed that all the courses are Romani dishes that his mother made for him when he was young. And
Mm.
Dwayne McDuffie took the time to research traditional Romani food that was so obscure that
Wow.
it was hard for me to find it when I was researching that kind of stuff. I'm looking on the internet. This was back in
Wow.
like 2005, 2004, 2005.
Right. No one's bothering to do
Yeah,
that if they're,
Listen,
yeah.
in 2001, there was no Wikipedia, but like there were like
books.
world atlases and fact books.
Yeah,
It is not hard to look up what the primary
right,
language of a country
right.
was,
There's
even
also
in
just
2001.
people. You could go
Yes,
talk to people, but
yes.
Even in 2001. I know there was no Wikipedia in
I think
2001.
Wikipedia technically existed, but
But it's
it was
also
not
like
Yeah,
what it is
this.
now.
we did have the internet in
Yeah, but
Yeah.
2001. I had the
the thing
internet.
is like, it's if
I
it's
used it to look up Pokemon Gold rumors.
that's amazing.
Wait, Doc, what were you going to say?
No, 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 no,
Sorry.
you're fine. You would think that Morrison would do their research because like if it's in the water, so
Yeah.
to speak, that everybody's talking about all those
Yeah, yeah,
scary
yeah,
brown
yeah.
people who should at least have the dignity to know what languages that they're speaking. I would think.
It really baffles me because Morrison, look, I look at Morrison sometimes through rose-colored glasses because certain Morrison stories have had such important impacts on me at points in my
Mm,
life. But I think we perhaps, Morrison heads such as myself, overestimate Morrison's knowledge of progressive politics. Like I think Morrison often their heart really is in the right
hmm
place, but they are not, even though their dad was this big anti-nuke activist and they take a lot of pride in that, they're often not really up on how things are working politically, and they don't seem to have an overarching political
Right.
theory, you
Well,
know?
it's so interesting because we were talking about this. Doc and I,
Yeah.
again, we're chatting a little bit about this, that, spoilers when we get to, because we recorded out of order, but when we get to the episode on Planet X, I
Yeah.
talk about how Planet X feels so critical of US imperialism and so critical of the fact that, when an atrocity was conducted to the United States, when September 11th happened, conducted to the United States, when September 11th happened, atrocity was conducted to that was the worst phrasing. I'm a
Start
writer.
over again. You can get it.
It's
Okay.
fine. No, you know what? Leave it in, double it. But when an atrocity happened in the United States, that being September 11th, which, again,
Yeah, mass civilian deaths. Yeah, of course.
was a horrible thing that happened, mass civilian death, but the US basically like uses that as justification to do everything terrible.
Well,
And
you remember, I don't know if you, well, Doc was too young. Maybe even you were too young. I was a teenager, and I'll never forget that the operation to invade Afghanistan, do you recall what it was called initially? Then they had to change it. Operation Infinite Justice. Infinite Justice.
I
Not only is it justice to kill all these innocent people, our justice will be infinite. And then it turned into enduring freedom, which is somehow almost just as bad. But
it's
it's a
basically
very
yeah.
paraphrased. It's like enduring kind of means
freedom, right?
infinite. Yeah.
But infinite justice is the kind of thing that superheroes
Yeah.
say. It's like it
Absolutely.
sounds like the name of a crossover
Yeah.
event, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But the thing that we were talking about, and Doc, I know you said, is I'm like, it seems like Morrison is so against imperialism in the Planet X book, but like Morrison being against imperialism doesn't necessarily mean you were pointing out, doesn't necessarily mean that they like brown people.
Absolutely.
Or at
Like
least that they're, or yeah.
those are two separate ideas, and they can be
Yeah.
Islamophobic while also thinking that we shouldn't necessarily conduct ourselves abroad in the way that we
Yeah.
are. But it's so interesting, and it is kind of a contradiction in a
Hmm.
way. And like Josie said, it can be hard. I'm also a Morrison fan. Again, I like this run, which is why I wanted to do a podcast, but
Mhm.
also because I think that this run is imperfect, like we say in the
Very
first
much so.
episode, and this
Yeah.
is absolutely the worst part
But
of
it's
it.
really quite tough. And I think part of the reason why I have such a complicated net negative relationship with this run is also because of the proximity of it to like 2001, 2002, 2003. And Morrison makes no attempt to hide how prominent of an influence that was on their writing. Like I think even prior to this issue that introduces dust, like if Magnetic Fields is Morrison mourning the loss of life in 9/11. This is the one where they're personally
Right.
taking Afghanis to task for crimes against humanity and now fictional mutants. Even
Right.
in like the whole Planet
Yeah.
X conversation with Magneto, I remember the quote that's very famous about Morrison justifying why Magneto's characterized the way that they are. But I did not remember. I
Yeah.
recently revisited it how specifically 9/11 relevant it is, what they said. And actually, I think I wrote it down somewhere. It was just like,
Yeah, if you
yeah,
could,
yeah. So
I'd
it's
be
like
curious.
what people often forget, of course, is that Magneto, unlike Sir Ian McKellen, is a mad old terrorist twat,
Terrorist
right?
twat. I thought it was cunt, but yes,
Whatever,
yeah,
right?
twat.
We say
Yeah.
that in the Planet
Yeah,
X episode.
right.
That's
But
right.
Spoilers.
That's
Our
right.
guest our
Yeah.
guest says it in a lousy Scottish
yeah,
accent.
yeah. So it's just like, but it's that, like, I remember I always fixated on that from like a frustration of like, oh my God, Magneto, the Jewish Holocaust victim. But in this
Yes.
context too, like you see the built up rage that Morrison has post 9/11. Like they were like, no matter
Yeah.
how he justifies his stupid, brutal behavior or how anyone else tries to justify it, in the end, he's just an old bastard with daft old ideas based on violence and coercion. And that is very reflective in the Dust comic as well, in how Charles talks about this Pakistani terrorist.
Oh God. Well, with the way Charles dismissively
Yep,
talks about the conflict between India and
yep,
Pakistan as like warring
yep,
tribes, and I'm
And
like, are
and
you
and
kidding
yep.
me?
so Xavier specifically mentions the situation in Kashmir or
Kashmir.
what is it?
Yeah.
Kashmir.
Hmm.
I'm trying to
It's
pronounce it
okay.
Yeah, I mean,
correctly. And
it's
not
okay.
like
Yeah.
the fabric. I know that it's not literally pronounced
Yes,
cashmere,
but yes,
but
yes.
he talks about the conflict in Kashmir, and it is one of, if not the most contested piece of land in
Yeah,
in the world,
in the
and
world.
it's because of the years and years of conflict between
India and Pakistan,
Pakistani
which but
India and Pakistan.
it dates back to
Right.
partition. I mean, it's
Oh,
like there's
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But
yeah.
but look, I am an anti-violent person, and obviously, I wish the fighting would stop everywhere in the world. I wish we could come to productive solutions. I hate violence,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I hate that Xavier refers to it as perceived
Yeah.
injustices,
Yeah,
which
what
is
the
so
hell?
patronizing because it's like saying that the reasons that they fight over Kashmir is not real is very
Right.
weird to me and very much makes them feel
It's
like
very
kids fighting
American.
over a toy.
This could have
Like,
been solved with an
Yep.
email, that
Very
sort of
and
much.
thing.
it's like no, it couldn't. Again, yes, I wish that the fighting would stop too. I don't like war, but you need to acknowledge that there are justified reasons. Like,
Or at least there are reasons that they happen. Doc, what I think
No,
you want
it's
to
all
say
good.
something.
I remember mentioning this to Becca when we were just talking about this issue, like offline. But in regards to that, I feel like it's such an interesting thing that sometimes ex-writers do, where because they're kind of shielded by this idea that you
Yeah.
have like this fantasy marginalization, like that
Yep.
kind of has that like protects your characters. They can make lofty statements about those silly quote unquote brown people with their strange brown customs or their backwards brown ways. And like Charles, yes, he's a mutant. So then that gives him like the pass to be like, oh, those odd, those strange backwards people, those tribalistic, silly folk. Like it's giving Rudyard Kipling white man's burden. Like, sit down, Charles.
Very much so.
It unquestionably is.
It's really, really ridiculous.
Which actually I would find interesting if Morrison were not clearly writing Charles as though they believe Charles is in the right. Like, it would actually be very interesting if you had a British, like if you were doing this as like the Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier, as a critique of the fact that the whites of imperialism think that they're above all of the stuff that they caused.
Since partition is really where the conflict over Kashmir starts. But, you know, again, and it is interesting because, again, Morrison doesn't believe Charles Xavier is always right because literally what we're talking about next week is Riot at Xavier's, which is
Magneto being right.
which is all about, you know, again, and who's right, Quentin or Xavier and all of those things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel, you know, from a writing standpoint, it does not feel like this is supposed to be Xavier doing something wrong. You know, Xavier literally brainwashes these people. And no one, you know, if we were supposed to believe that what Xavier was doing was evil, if the comic, if the writing, if the story wanted us to believe that, then Jean Grey would have at least said, like,
was that necessary?
Was that necessary?
But Jean's totally on board with it.
The Indian police or Indian customs agents or
soldiers,
army,
whatever they are.
I don't know. Whatever they are, they don't have a problem with it. Jean doesn't have a problem with it, and Jean has been kind of the voice of reason throughout this run. Jean doesn't have a problem with it. And then immediately we go to X-Corp, and, you know, in the Weapon 12 arc, we met a branch of X-Corp, the branch that we commonly refer to as X-Factor. And in that case, they're in France, they're operating out of France, and none of them are French. But, you know, it's a little different because it's, you know, again, because France is, you know, whatever, like they're white people in France. And it's like, great, the government of France is mostly white, all of these different things.
Probably not going to have a problem with that. Right. But you have like X-Corp.
Now we're introduced to X-Corp, which is Feral, Thorn, and Feral and Thorn are like, I don't even know what race they are, but they're cat girls. You have Sunfire, who's Asian, but
Japanese,
the wrong type of Asian. And literally, you want to talk about like just another thing of racism when he sees Wolverine and he's like, be careful, Wolverine is a samurai. And I'm like, okay, you know, whatever. And you have the wrong kind of Indian, as we said, because Thunderbird is back. And the hilarious part is Charles Xavier is like, aren't you dead, Thunderbird?
Aren't you dead? I'm like, the other Proud Star has been a character for like a decade and a half at this point. And like, Charles just can't remember that, apparently, and it's just confusing him with his brother, because they all look the same to Charles, apparently.
But why are these people...
Why are they there?
The X-Men, not to use the term these people, which I do hate, and Charles does, or Logan does use.
Logan uses it. It's the first line of the comic.
Sure. Yeah. Or is you people. But why are these people? Why are Feral and Thorn and Proudstar and Sunfire, why are they our liaisons to India? That just feels like colonization at that
like
point.
It's just like India is mostly kind of the set dressing for this, and I feel like it is really interesting and important to point out, like you know, you guys talking about Xavier kind of being like, you know, the way the narrative posits it, like just objectively in the right. It's like something so far beyond even the concept of Charles being wrong in here, because it's just like these people are in effect so far below them. Like, it's just like, of course Charles is right, like stopping this hijacking. And it's like in this way of like Charles having to white mansplain like ethics and simple things like this to the brown
Yep.
people, like even with the Indians, like I think it's actually quite important contextually at this time. I believe like in 2001, there was also a attack on Indian parliament by a Pakistani insurgent regarding Kashmir. So I
Mm.
think Morrison may have even been drawing on that, where it's like this.
May have had that in the back.
Right. So in this
Yeah.
way of just like it's like the really scary brown Muslim people, we have to protect the slightly less scary brown Indian people. But no, don't worry. Those are also kind of shady too, because Charles goes out of his way to be like, don't worry.
To be like, don't
Yeah, don't
mistreat them.
mistreat them
Yeah.
because like I know how you people are. And that you people, right,
Ugh.
from like Logan in the beginning of the issue. It just like again,
Yeah, when will you people learn to listen to
yeah.
reason? Which is the angry, petulant
Yes.
white scream that is the entire issue. Is
Yes.
that first line? When will you people finally listen to
Right.
reason? Which is
And
like, what
Yeah.
reason? I mean,
and
I want to quote Dr. Doom really briefly
Oh,
because
yes, please.
one of the things I love about Doom is this idea that there's reason, but reason is
hmm
man-made. That there are things more powerful than white man's enlightenment
Right.
conception of
Right.
reason. Like there are things that are truer and more powerful than that. And Doom gets
hmm
that. And it seems like Morrison really doesn't get that
No,
in
not
this
at all.
issue, where it's like it's all about an appeal to reason, like warring tribes. Why are we doing
Right.
this? Can't we all just get along? But reason fails. Reason
Yeah.
fails because we're not creatures of pure
Right. And I
logic.
think it's interesting because I wouldn't even say that Morrison doesn't get it because in other contexts, I do think they get it, right? Like in Ryan and Xavier's,
Yeah, you're
there is
right.
that perception
You're
of like
right.
the old versus new and kind of the
You're
progression.
right.
But brown people are not part of that conversation or that level of
No.
understanding. Like this kind of thing where like Logan is literally sitting atop a mound of dead brown bodies that are like turbaned,
Oh,
right?
mangled
Yeah.
and very hideous. It's
Yeah.
not suggestive, it's
Yeah,
depictive.
absolutely. And then even
and
like the
and
fact that it's like a what the one guy who's left is like shooting Logan in the back. Like, what does that say about those kind of people? Those people. Like, what is that? What are you trying to say, Morrison? I think it's quite
Right.
obvious.
And Doc, you were bringing up a couple of quick things, or maybe not quick things, that you brought up to me that I just want to make sure, in our conversation beforehand, that I
Mm.
want to make sure get
Mm,
spoken. First of all, you also see a very like a softer kind of like Orientalism when Farrell, I think it's Farrell, it might be Thorne,
mm.
goes like, they love our costumes here in India
Oh,
because it
Oh,
reminds
yeah, because
them
they
of
love that.
Bollywood.
yeah.
And it's like,
Give
okay,
me
we
a
had to throw
break.
that in
Yeah.
there. Like, but the other important thing, can you speak a little bit about like the slave trade
Oh,
and things like that
sure.
in
Right, right, right.
Afghanistan? Because that was super interesting
Yeah.
what you brought to light about
Sure.
that, because that is again a topic I don't know, and I
And
know I
this
don't
comic
know.
certainly would not educate you about in any kind of factual way.
Right.
So please do tell
Yeah.
us. I'm very
It was just
curious,
something
Doc.
that we were chatting about kind of in passing, but I think it is really, really interesting that Morrison has this take that, like, Logan is liberating dust from these, like, oppressive, human or mutant trafficking, like, sex slave traders or whatever you'd like to call them, because it is actually a point of, like an important underscored point that I can recall that even Afghanis have said of that time that whatever the Taliban did, one of the things that was most prominent when they took power, that conservative government did, was like kind of putting the kibosh on like human trafficking in the region. So I think it's just so interesting. It is.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
did not
I
know
remember there
that.
was like a documentary by Al Jazeera where there was like a Afghani woman who talked about that. So
Yeah.
it's such an interesting thing that Morrison is kind of wanting to have their cake and eat it too, where just like this pre
Yeah.
Taliban, like sexual exploitation, but also the post-Taliban, like burqa'd, niqabbed, fully veiled,
Yeah,
oppressive
yeah, yeah,
Muslim
yeah.
woman. Just like again, that monolith, that Muslim, like Middle Eastern
Mm,
brown monolith. Like all of them are the same. They all dress the same. They all speak the same language. All their men are either like exploiting or oppressing their women. So it's just kind of like it just shows that Morrison, who is so insightful and so scathing in other ways that feel quite leftist, suddenly is back to like 80s white people racism, Islamophobia, Orientalism.
right. I mean, this issue belongs in the Hall of Shame next to Holy
For sure.
Terror, Frank Miller's
Hmm.
project. And the most generous explanation I can give is the explanation that Miller gives about Holy Terror, which is I lost my
Right.
mind. Like it was a time when I was very scared, and Miller, I conditionally sort of accept that, but Morrison hasn't said anything
I
like
know.
that about
I know
Dust.
that.
There's
Yeah.
never been a like I got caught up in the jingoism and the
Right,
fear.
right. I think there have been things that Morrison has said regarding like in this kind of same vein, not regarding Dust, but just generally that they were shaken by 9/11. It was something that obviously bled into their writing of like disillusionment and stuff. But that there's no specific apology, there is no specific underscoring of, and that resultantly led to me painting such like like these Muslims, these brown people in such a aggressive brush. There's no like,
Yeah.
apology, there's no kind of contrition. So that
Hmm.
makes it basically seem like for all this time they stand by what they wrote. And I really I can't abide by that objectively.
No, I'm with you. I'm with
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
And
Becca.
so we asked, what did Morrison have to say about this comic? And another thing Doc shared with me is a little thing that Ethan Van Siever said about this
Oh,
issue.
Oh,
please, because I didn't know
Um,
about that.
so
Yeah.
okay, so first of all, folks at home, you guys can look up Ethan Van Siever on your own time,
Google Ethan Van Siever controversy
there's
and see
so
what
many.
and
happens.
you can figure out where you stand on Ethan Van Siever there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One thing that I will say, Doc was kind enough to share with me a screenshot of Ethan Van Siever's Twitter from
Oh
October
dear.
3rd, 2021.
Okay.
And EVS says this about Dust. And I'm gonna edit out the parts that he says about Jessica Cruz because that's irrelevant because he also talks about Jessica Cruz, who he also co-created. He says, and I'm not gonna do a voice for him because he doesn't deserve that.
No, please don't.
I had very little to do with creating Dust. I just drew her as requested from Morrison's script. That's enough for co-creation credit, though. Dust and Jessica aren't SJW characters because their purpose isn't to flatter readers who share their skin color or ethnic background. They were created to serve stories. And then he goes on. Dust was a terrified mutant from Mumbai that needed rescuing.
Oh.
Like the
So
salt on the
Oh.
there's
wound.
so many
Wow.
pieces in there. There's
Wow.
so many pieces we could talk about
Yeah.
there.
Doc, yeah, I'm curious if you have
I mean,
any initial
I'm
responses.
so unfortunately, I think this is the experience of the Muslim in these spaces where I'm just like, I am so objectively desensitized to being like whacked in this way. I'm just like the point of
Yeah.
contention that I was even saying to Becca when I sent her this. I was just like, the fact that he doesn't even remember which brown people that they were being racist to is just hilarious to me. I'm just like, Mumbai, like for
Yeah.
real, Ethan. Like it's
Come on.
hilarious to me. I also remember back in the day, like a couple years ago, he even put a Jordanian American comics creator on blast, Sarah Alfaji, because she did like a redesign of Dust's outfit because all she'd be doing is breasts, hips, all like that. So she was like, let me do like
Yeah.
an appropriate kind of depiction, and
Yeah.
that
Sure.
rightfully went kind of viral. And Comicsgate people were all over her for that because
Yeah.
Ethan kind of put her on
Yeah.
blast. But anyhow, this comment, we're just like that they're not social, justice warrior characters, that they don't flatter readers who share their skin color or ethnic background. The just the way that it's
Well,
phrased,
they certainly
they
don't,
don't.
I
But
guess, but
it's
yeah.
not even about flattery. Just like just
No.
like
Well,
like you're not even like depicting with any realm of kind of like appropriate detail, like just like a decent portrayal, research, any of
Research.
that. None of that is present here.
I
No.
I just love the complete lack of like the complete lack of understanding that other people have interiority besides Ethan Van Siever
Yeah.
there. The idea that he's like, my characters affect the plot. Your characters don't affect the plot. And it's like, I would argue all characters affect the plot.
Hmm.
That's what makes them
Yeah.
characters.
What's
Like,
especially weird is like I guess dust is a device here, but dust doesn't drive the plot. That's one of the
Right.
problems with the
Right.
comic is that, like, you could have put anybody or thing in there. Like, it's just she's a
Yeah.
MacGuffin. Like, she doesn't have any
Right. Right.
characterization. So that's an especially offensive
Yeah,
thing
it
to say,
is.
Brent.
It is so interesting because it's like Dust is like, we said before, just like she's so prominently defined by her amorphous like Muslim identity. I think generally, usually, the problem that I feel like comes up in X-Men books is that the writers struggle with the idea of a character being a real minority while also being a mutant,
Yeah. Oh, the
right? Yeah.
intersection.
So
They
yeah,
really struggle with that.
We talk about that, Doc. We'll have talked about that
it's
already. We're recording
yeah,
this after you've only heard the first
right.
episode.
But trust us, the intersectionality
It's
We
piece
talk
is
about that
it's
a ton.
it's so
ridiculous.
hard. So few
Yeah.
writers have ever bothered to even try to tackle it, and when they do tackle it, it's often worse than if they
Right, right.
didn't.
And I think it's just
Yeah.
so hard when you have these things like ironically for Dust, it's like a flip because all she
Yeah.
is the fact that she is like this vague, scary, like exotic Muslim sand creature. That's also like a
Yeah.
mutant, but it's like for the sake of the plot, whatever Ethan is trying to say here.
Right.
Ironically, like right now, Kamala Khan is struggling, I think, with the fact that they've labeled her as a mutant because they flipped that, where now it's so important to her the Muslim persecution in the background. It's now mutant persecution is the primary aspect of her identity. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you were saying that because I don't keep up with modern X-Men
I haven't
comics
kept
because
Oh,
it
up.
ugh.
infuriates me, but you were
Yeah.
saying that there's like an issue where like Sophie Cuckoo has to like explain racism to Kamala Khan.
Yeah,
Are you kidding
right. I
me?
think it was like to her, like she's basically like telling off Kamala's Muslim cousin in Nyx about oppression and what it feels like to be oppressed. Saying this to a visibly Muslim
Uh,
man, bearded, hat,
And
all this
it's
stuff.
like Sophie Cuckoo
Yeah.
is like the most conventionally attract like literally
uh,
a clone of the most beautiful woman in the world.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah. And it's, I think, really funny. I did not keep up with Nyx exactly because that infuriated me so bad. But from my understanding, that character that she is white woman mutant splaining like oppression to ends up being like becomes like a villain on like a goblin glider or something. It's like, okay, so now we've created a new fun Muslim terrorist to harass the X-Men.
Great.
So it's like, wonderful. Just wonderful. It's
this
in
is part
2024.
this is part of my problem with Kamala
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
mutant because again,
Yeah.
you're going to wind up losing the Muslim parts of her story that were so crucial and
Right.
central
Yeah.
because there truly has never been and there is basically never been an X comic that handled intersectionality
Right.
correctly. There's hints at it sometimes.
Very rare. I'm trying to think of any
Mm-hmm.
of them
Right.
really.
I mean, I always say that my favorite, and this isn't like a whole comic, this is literally just a throwaway scene at the end of New Mutants Annual 1, when Danny Moonstar first puts on the uniform and insists on wearing her old boots and her old belt and
Mm.
stuff, and Xavier is like, "You gotta change. You're out of uniform." And she goes like,
Mm-hmm.
"No.
Yeah.
I'm Cheyenne first and a mutant second."
Right. Right.
Second.
And
Yeah.
Xavier is like, I learned, like, you're
You've
right.
taught me a lesson.
You've
Yeah.
taught
Yeah.
me a
Yeah.
Yeah.
lesson. And like, I'm not going to claim that Claremont does great by Native Americans in that run because she also has magic Native American powers that are distinct from her magic mutant powers and all of that 100%. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
she can
Yeah.
talk
But
to animals, and that's just because she's Cheyenne. It
I
is not her mutant power. She can talk to animals. But anyway, that is a great way to condense the idea of intersectionality
yeah.
down. And
They
a
don't do that
comic
very
with
often.
that vibe needs
Yeah.
to
right.
a whole comic with that vibe needs to from an own voice's perspective and not,
Sure.
Claremont talking about a Cheyenne woman, but
For me, the closest that I've seen to an honest depiction of the intersectionality of life and the Marvel Universe is a satirical depiction of it, which is in Ecstatics, back when it was still called X-Force, the Peter Milligan and Mike Allred
Mm.
run. There's this whole long very awkward, but productively awkward and deliberately discomforting joke because you start out with a team that has one black guy. And he has a line where he says, being black and a mutant, it's like being black with a little black added. And that's sort of like funny, ha ha ha. And then the next issue, another black guy joins the team. And it's like, it's this satirical treatment of the fact that Marvel cannot deal with
Right.
intersectionality.
Right.
Like they start dealing with the fact that like, wait, there's two black guys on this team, but that are they a class too within mutants? Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like mutants are the only thing that matters here. And I actually think that's kind of good, but that's still white people satirizing
Yeah.
as opposed to doing like an actual own voices creative,
Right. Right. Right.
creation.
Can I tell you what feels the weirdest to me about
What?
this? Was always the original Mark Waid Champions run.
Really?
Because every member of the team is a person of color
Yeah.
or some kind of minority,
Yeah.
and then there's Scott Summers. And and you can definitely read that as Scott being like the token cishet friend or all of those things. I guess Viv Vision is also on the original team, although I feel like she's now sort
Well,
of become a lesbian and also like is sometimes coded as that's a
person of
complicated
color. I
thing,
know.
right?
We're not getting to the
But
vision
but
stuff,
but it
please.
absolutely, yeah, please. But it absolutely sometimes feels like Mark Waid is like, and then we have another minority on this team, a mutant. It
Mutant.
absolutely sometimes feels like that in the writing.
Right.
And I like a lot of new champions. And certainly it gets better when a woman takes over writing it. What is it?
But
Eve Ewing. Eve
Yeah.
Ewing
yeah.
has a pretty good run on it. But it does feel that way. And there are definitely moments where Cyclops is like, you don't know how hard it is to be a mutant. And it's like Cyclops, shut the
Come
fuck
on,
up.
man.
I love you, but shut the fuck up. Sometimes it's okay
Yeah.
not to
I was gonna say
talk.
it's like that Bend It like Beckham thing where just like he's talking to the Pakistani girl. She's like, and he's like, I'm Irish. Don't you know I get it how it feels? Like it's like,
Right.
oh
But that's the thing is like I wish to God there would be more exploration of the
yeah.
intersectionality in these
Right.
things because it's the issue of our time that bedevils the
Yeah.
left. Like the left still has not figured out how to contend with the fact that if we're talking about oppression, different people are oppressed in
For
different ways,
sure.
and sometimes oppressed people oppress other
Yeah.
people who are oppressed. Like these are questions that the X-Men could be a really productive
Yeah.
metaphor
Right.
for,
Right.
but you so rarely see it because not even so much, I don't even so much blame the writers because the writers are just the people who are hired by the editorial, who are hired by the
Yeah.
execs, and that's all white
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, I always blame execs and editors more than the writers
More than the
because
writers generally,
I
yeah.
know a lot of like POC and queer writers whose work has disappointed me with Marvel. I'm not gonna name names, but I
But yeah,
know
Yeah.
they would have said more if they could have said
Yeah.
more.
right, which
For
they
sure,
can't.
for sure. I do feel like in regards to poignant or appropriate depictions of like intersectionality, at least in like the X-Men space, I don't think that like my personal favorites have really truly been kind of Claremont when he is writing Magneto, and I think the key of that truly
Yes.
is the fact that Claremont himself is Jewish and has that Jewish
That
Right.
Claremont is
experience.
Jewish. It's an
It's
own
like
voices
Own
story.
voices,
yeah,
own
Yes.
voices always is
and I think it's
superior.
just that's the whole key of it. Just like he can speak from like the in-group from that kind of understanding, from that empathic lens. It's just like when Magneto is kind of balancing the fact that he is like this objective villain, but also kind of struggling with the fact that his like previous trauma informs kind of his rage and then
Yeah.
also his contrition and all this other kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
that is like the
Yeah.
key of it. And I feel like even in that's I feel like been an issue a lot with like Doom as well, where I'm just like writers don't emphasize that enough. That all that
I
he
was
does.
just gonna
Yeah.
say, I really want to ask you before we sort of wrap things
Sure.
up. I wanted to ask you. We have debates on this podcast about whether Magneto was
Uh-huh.
right, but for one episode, I want to set that aside. Was Doctor Doom right? Would we be better off in a world where Doom won?
It's a fascinating question. I think in some capacities Yes, but in some capacities, no, because like his neuroses is kind of like broken up into two things, right? And then 50% of it, 100%, the other percent of it is very Reed Richards focused. But the other piece of it, right? Where just like the
Hmm.
entire reason that all the films, all of like these like other depictions of Doctor Doom have fallen flat, or some weak even portrayals of him in the comics, is that they don't recognize, they don't honor, they don't underscore the very fact that his reason to be, the transformation of him into this villain, came from racial trauma, from marginalization, from oppression. He grew up as like this poor Roma boy with his parents being
Hmm.
murdered by like state-sanctioned violence. His father murdered
Yeah.
by like the Baron, Latveria, I think, and like later on is retconned to be like a Nazi ally at that time. So it
Yeah.
just like,
Which,
right,
sure.
making sense. It just like his father murdered by the state, his mother murdered by the soldiers when she tries to kind of fight for their people. All of those things, they inform him and have informed him literally since Jack Kirby and Stan Lee wrote him in 1964 with that Fantastic Four Annual 2. It has been his reason to
That's
be.
Fantastic
right.
Four Annual 2 is so good. For
So
folks
Oh,
who
good.
it's so
haven't
good.
So
read
good.
it,
It's easily one of the better Kirby Lee comics. It should
uh,
be up there with the
It's
Galactus
so good.
trilogy, but
Yeah,
it's not.
a true book length Boris bust up.
so good.
But as I used to say on Daily Fantastic,
But keep
but
going,
Yeah,
keep going.
it's
Yeah.
it's
yeah, no,
it's
no, no.
wonderful. Honestly, even better than Brubaker's Books of Doom, but that's like a conversation for another time. But anyways, the fact is that his marginalization has been so core to his character for so long. That is why that fury at the world. That is why that anger about injustice. That is why he feels so hell-bent on showing that he is worthy, that he is correct, that he cannot
Yep.
fail. Because if he fails, it shows that he is less than, that he is not that important. So, in that
Hmm.
frame of reference,
Hmm.
he is right to take over Latveria. He is right to protect the Roma. In like a wonderful book that Marvel put out, that was like an official Marvel novel, he protects the Roma. And there's also a point where they say pre
Wait, what? I didn't know
yeah,
about that. What novel is
awesome,
that?
awful
Forgive
novel
my
story. So
ignorance.
it's like the Marvel Untold series by David Annandale. There's like a set of three. The last one is amazing. He literally fights the Red Skull. That's how like anti-Nazi he is in it. It's wonderful. I,
Wow, I've got to
it's
check that
great.
out. I've
It's
never
great.
heard of that
I was like
one.
mutuals with the writer on Twitter for a while. He's just, it was wonderful,
That's
great stuff. But
terrific.
the point in that one, in the first book, oh my God, so good. Like they say in the pre-Doom Latveria that there were transphobic laws in place called the laws of the person that Doom gets rid of once he takes power. And one of his top,
Doctor Doom
I
said
did not.
yeah,
You have not
yeah,
told me this one.
I've
Doctor Doom said
he
trans rights?
did.
I had
You don't
no
even know. So
idea.
his right-hand woman in the novel, her name is I think Cariana Verlac. Her wife is a trans neurosurgeon that he takes on as part of like his team in that series of novels. He is for trans rights. Okay, he is for the LGBT. All right? It's amazing. That's how lefty Doom
I
is.
loved that.
I
I
wish our
absolutely love that.
audiences could see the face that
The
the
face
faces that Josie and I were just making.
that is
I
because it's up there with that great panel from the Hickman FF run where it's like in Latveria, children always get a good night's
Yeah,
sleep. It's like, yeah, I wrote an article, you may have read it, I don't know, about Doom being the
I
best
have.
supervillain for
I have.
Vulture. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay. I'm with you. I think that like the thing that makes Doom interesting, and I say this as a Jew, I don't want Magneto to win. I don't think Magneto was right. I have much more sympathy for
Right.
Doom because Doom has actually run a government well, whereas like Magneto, say what you will, Grant Morrison's interpretation I
Yeah.
disagree with, but Magneto is primarily a terrorist as opposed to a
Right,
politician.
right.
And Doom is genuinely interested in the welfare of people.
Definitely.
Like he just thinks that the way to do it is through submitting to his will
Yeah.
and, all glory to Doom. But like I'll take
Yeah.
that these days over I just want to destroy things,
Right, right. But I think it's really interesting too because I think when I say like Doom is like he's Doom's right, but like partially right in that I think truly
Yes.
when he's like I want to take over the world, it's less that, like one of his huge things is obviously like erasing like marginalization, persecution, but for him taking over the
Yeah.
world is kind of a reflection of, and then once that's done, the hole inside me will be filled, right? Just like I will show
Yes.
Reed Richards I'm just as good as you.
Yes.
You will care. Like it's so interesting in Hickman's Secret Wars where he takes
Wow.
over all of
Yeah.
reality and he looks at Reed, he's like, you like me, right? Like you care, right? I did a good
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah. 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 I did it. I
It's
did
so
it.
important because it's like even that like supposed like hatred of Reed is really that like he wants him to accept him really in the family. Like see, that's the thing with Hickman's
Yeah.
Fantastic Four that he does such a beautiful job of showing. We're just like it's not that he actually hates them. Deep down he wants the family.
You just
He's just
want,
too
yeah.
tsundere to like accept it, right? To say, yeah, Reed, I will kind of join you guys. But it's like that's what the world kind of
Beautiful.
domination of it is because like he's trying to fill the hole rather than that.
He's trying to fill the hole, but also he genuinely thinks he can do it better.
Absolutely.
And the scary part is you look at the world and you're like, well, maybe Doom could do it better.
Right, right.
That's why he's
Yes,
compelling.
it's so interesting, and it's especially because of that kernel, like that upbringing, that kind of background that he has. Unfortunately, Marvel
Yeah.
recently did this one series recently called like One World Under
Oh
Doom, where they
no.
kind of try to do that, and because I think exactly because they don't get into these. Informing details about his background and his like neuroses is why it falls flat. It's like because yeah, like look at the state of the world. Doom really would do like a good job, even with all his hangups and the fact that he is not in therapy, definitely.
Well, the thing is, like, I love Secret Wars because
Right.
Secret Wars is a pro-pluralism
Yeah.
thing. Battle World is Doom saying different places have different ways of doing things.
Hmm.
And my job is to prevent them from all killing each other so they can thrive in whatever way they see fit. Now, of course, he's also kind of an authoritarian with a chip on his shoulder and a hole in his heart. So he goes too
Yeah.
far. But like what I love about Battle World is not
Yeah.
homogenous. Like Doom does not create a homogenous world where everyone looks like
Yep.
Doom. That's not what he's interested in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is really, really interesting because it's like I think part of that like not ruling over them like so like nitty gritty is also yeah, that
Micromanaging it.
micromanaging. I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting because it's also because he's so depressed in Secret Wars. Like he's like literally saying it's just like this perfect world and I'm the only thing that's imperfect. And just like he is so sad about it, which is I'm just like he's not going to be satisfied even if he's ruling all of reality, which is just like maybe if he's really ruling all of reality and he was Reed Richards' side piece, then maybe he would be content.
I was just about to say the gay subtext is what we're all ignoring here
100,000%.
because
You
come
think I'm
on.
ignoring it?
I'm not ignoring, but we're not
Yeah.
saying
Have
it,
you
I should
met
Oh,
me?
say.
so much. Like I think it is like again, like in the same way that more people know about Magneto's Jewishness and like Magneto and Xavier's kind of thing, like Reed and Doom were kind of like their grandfathers in that way.
They were there first. They were there
Absolutely.
first.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I truly think the reason that people don't know it, like you said, or did you say this off mic? I don't remember, but is because of the
Yeah.
movies, and it's the fact that the X-Men movies deal with the themes of Magneto and the
Right.
Holocaust. It is explicitly shown to you in the
Yeah.
movies. Deal with the sort of will they, won't they with Xavier and
Yeah.
Magneto.
Because it's Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and they know what they're
Yeah.
doing. And they know
Right.
what kind of movie
Whereas
they're
the
in.
Fantastic Four movies have never touched on any of those themes. It's never mentioned that, again, in the 90s one that barely airs.
In the 2015 one, he's not explicitly Roma in the 2015
No, he's
one, is he?
not. So it's
No,
like there's
he is
no.
not.
I
no.
remember they play him as like foreign and exotic, but
He
I
is
couldn't remember
foreign.
if
Although
right.
although a lot of that is added in ADR.
Yes, that's a
Right,
very
right,
good
right.
point.
There is a lot
But
of ADR in
Yeah.
in
I have a lot of
Fantastic.
affection. I have a lot of affection for like the 15 good minutes of
Same,
Fant
same,
Four.
same. Yeah.
Josie, that is absolutely the primary one of the primary arguments of our like daily fantastic friend
Okay,
group.
good. I'm glad. The
Yeah.
like good 15 minutes scattered throughout that movie are
Right.
terrific.
Are
I
terrific.
agree.
And I love its anti-government take. I'm a big
Exactly.
fan
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Yes.
But again, they've never dealt with that, and now we're kind of gearing up for this all to happen again. Not to
Yeah.
not to blow
Yep.
up Doc's spot or
Mm.
anything, but like, and I know it's not related to Dust, but you know what? In a way, it kind of is related to our conversation because casting Robert Downey Jr. as Doom,
Yeah.
even if we're arguing it's a parallel universe Doom or something like this, is erasing the intersectionality from Doom's
Right.
backstory.
Yeah.
It's erasing an important component of his
Yeah.
backstory that affects his motivations and his
Right.
actions. And when
Yeah.
you approach a backstory to a character in a way that is uneducated and kind of just brushes over stuff, that's how you get situations to, try to be a good host here and bring it back to Dust. That's how you get situations like Dust, where the
Yeah.
character does not feel
Right.
authentic because there's nothing genuinely Afghani about Soraya. And, again, there's going to be nothing genuinely Roma about Doctor Doom. There's going to be nothing genuinely any minority about
Yeah.
Doctor Doom if he's Robert Downey
No, if
Yeah.
he's
Jr.
Yeah.
Robert Downey
It's
Jr.
not even like,
Unless they're faking us out or some shit, it's
I would
not going to be.
love I would love
doubt
to
it.
believe that.
I'd love it if that turns out to be the
Yeah.
case, but I
I
highly
think the
doubt it.
unfortunate thing is like I don't even know if I would even use the word intersectionality for this. Like this is literally his identity. Like there's one minority that he is canonically in this, right?
Right. With Magneto, it's
Yeah.
intersectionality, but
true,
with
true,
Doom,
true.
it's just an
He's
identity.
literally Romani. He has been Romani since
Yeah.
like the 1960s.
Since
Not a retcon, not anything, has been that way.
this is not
Yeah.
comics getting woke
Yeah,
in the
it's
2000s
been that
or
way. So it's just
something.
like
No.
that, those two kind of core tenets to his character, right? That he has been Romani, and also that he has had such a history with Reed Richards to the degree that he is kind of the main man
Yeah.
that matters to him in the universe.
Right.
The fact that they don't
Right.
recognize that in like the prior movies is the key to why these movies haven't done well and done him well, because it's like, why
Yeah.
is Doctor Doom into Sue Storm? He has never given like a flaming whatever. Like he's never cared about Sue that way.
He's obvious. No, he's married to Sue Storm in Secret Wars because he wants Reed to
Right.
respect him and to be like, I can be a better husband to your wife than even
Yeah,
you
it's
were.
like
But
it's so much like I think he even says in one of those like last issues of Secret Wars, he's like, I kept your family safe for you. It's like so constantly.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
so he's like, I
Yeah.
care. Like he's showing that he cares to Reed. He doesn't care about anything else. Ben was like the shield. Johnny's the sun. Sue and the kids are over there in the
Yeah.
corner. Like Sue and Doom in that are so fascinating because in the original Shooter Secret Wars, his thing is about his mom, and I think Sue really takes that thing where she's like this Madonna, like this non-sexual kind of thing that
Yes.
he's keeping safe for Reed. So it's just like the white hot core.
Fascinating.
If you're going to be doing Secret Wars as Marvel, like the MCU, you gotta remember it's like this. Like I'm like putting for people who are hearing this, fingers like to intertwined.
Fingers are being crossed.
They are literally.
Yes.
If I'm saying that they are Magneto and Xavier's grandfathers, I mean that in that way, in every way that you can imagine.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you don't remember those two core aspects to his character, you are not adapting Doctor Doom.
What are you
You're not
doing?
adapting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What are
You've
you
just
doing?
created evil Iron
Yeah.
Man now, and
Right. And who
my whole
cares?
thing with the MCU, and I don't complain about the MCU on this podcast, but I'd be complaining about it even more than Krakoa if
Yeah,
it was.
if we bothered, if it was related to the X-Men.
But making Iron Man central to like so much of the Marvel universe, like it doesn't work.
Very sus.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Very
work.
military-industrial
Mhm.
complex.
You can't replace Uncle Ben with Iron Man. I'm sorry.
No.
It doesn't work. It's the whole reason that Marvel MCU Spider-Man sucks
Yep.
eggs is because you can't replace Uncle Ben with Iron Man. And you can't replace Doctor Doom with Iron Man
Right.
either. Because again,
No.
what did we say? What did Grant Morrison say in the manifesto? And what did I so loudly and proudly say in the first episode that we recorded? The superpowers don't matter.
Right.
It's the least
Right.
important part of
It's
superheroes.
the least important part.
It's the least important
Yep.
part. Grant Morrison gets that. I get that. But like again, I don't care when people are like Doctor Doom and Iron Man both have robot suits, so it makes sense for them to be the same because they're not the same. The robot
No,
suits
that's-
are the same, but they're not the same. Like and that matters less. When people were like, we can adapt Kamala Khan however we want into the MCU because we don't want two characters who have stretching powers. The stretching
Right.
powers don't
No.
matter. Like
Yeah.
anyway.
I know. I know. Someday all these things will be open source. We'll all be uploaded into the cloud, and our consciousnesses can write all of our fanfic, and it'll be
Mm.
canon. And
Josie,
then
Josie, you know what is something you wrote that like literally almost brought me to tears? You mentioned traveling. It wasn't an article. It was literally just like
a
something.
ski.
It was something yeah, it was a skeet. Hold on, I found it. Josie, this is from you, from your Josie.zone blue sky, and you reposted it on Instagram, and that was where I had seen it at the time. But
Oh, I think I know what you're saying. Yeah, go ahead.
okay, hold on. I'm reminded of my trip to Tokyo in fall 2014. I went to a sushi shop one day, and the chef asked me where I was from. I said the USA. Without missing a beat, he goes, "Ah, USA. I am Groot." I almost cried. It was so weird and wonderful. I used to resent the grip that corporate pop culture had on humanity's hearts and minds, but I've come to see it as a fact of life, one to be incorporated into any moral program. We have replaced gods with superheroes. Let us wrest them from the hands of the heartless oligarchs. Let Goku unite us. The overarching question behind all my articles and books is this: in this supposed age of delusionment, what do people have faith in? Oh, yes,
Disillusionment?
yes. In this supposed age of disillusionment, what do people have faith in? A ton of folks have faith in corporate franchise characters. I see that as wonderful. Believing that good can exist is the first step to moral progress. But the trick is, any faith worth having is a faith worth questioning. The dude bro geek stands tend to see cheerleading and defensiveness as their duties. But the girlies and queerdos writing fanfic and coming up with elaborate non canonical theories, they are the modern day theologians. Anyway, TLDR, after the collapse, the people will tell stories of Holy Batman and Vegeta the Wicked by the firelight. The tales will offer both thrills and moral instruction, and the CEOs, dead in their bunkers, won't make a dime off of the characters they never should have owned in the first place.
Wow, I was really cooking with that one.
You were!
That's
I
very
remember
sweet.
as you were saying it, but I forgot it was that good.
It was really
Wow.
good. It was really
Thank
good.
you, Becca.
I'm such a good presenter, even if I can't pronounce theologian.
That's
I'm such
fine.
a good presenter that I fought through it, but my voice did catch
Oh, I
about
almost
Very
cried. I
sweet.
had to
about
hold
people
back because I
sitting
was like, if
about people sitting around the fire telling the stories of Holy Batman and Vegeta the Wicked.
I think it's such an important thing though to recognize that. And I think like even the fact that, it's like non-canon. I feel like sometimes people who write the fic or even care to this degree, like using myself as an example, I'm just like my hangups are mired in the fact that I'm reading these things with deep analytical incisiveness. It's just like I consider myself more thoughtful than the dude bros who are like obsessed with, no, it'll be fine. The MCU is fine. It's okay that they're making Doctor Doom Iron Man like number two or something. I'm just like, and that is really the frustrating thing of it. Just like we care, especially with these kind of characters and their
mm-hmm,
identities and the meanings
mm-hmm.
behind them. And just like that's who matters and that's what's important.
That's really beautiful of you to say. Thank you. I think now is a good time for us to ask our lightning round question and
Oh
wrap
boy,
it up.
I don't know what you're going to ask. Answer this question. Speaking of
We have
fandom,
one lightning round question we ask
Okay.
everybody. It's easy.
All right.
yeah. Doc, in Grant Morrison's manifesto, Grant mentions something being key to the popularity of the X-Men. So I'm curious, Doc, Logan, hot or not?
Uh, hmm. Personally, I mean, I like that Logan is like a short, funny little dude. I think that once you make him kind of like hot, sexy, like a legitimate kind of rival for like Jean's affections, which is never something that I really cared for. I feel like you start kind of losing the plot a little bit.
That's very interesting because, yeah, the original root of it is like, I'm too ugly. No one would ever like me.
Yeah, right, right. So I feel like that being said, I'm kind of torn because I actually do enjoy, not all the time, but when it's written right, I do like Storm and Logan, and I would want sexy things for her. Like I am a fan of like at times also like Storm and Doom. Like Claremont did a lovely job of like the Doom cameo in the original Uncanny X-Men where they have such a fun like little like sexy scary date. But like the bottom line is that I want good things for Aurora as well. So I feel like if Logan is not hot, then why would she bother? Like she deserves the best. So this is like a very hard question. I didn't think would be hard.
No, but you gave a great answer.
Josie, the other thing that you need to know about Doc and my online friendship is our little online group, Storm and Doctor Doom as a ship is also very important to us.
I'm totally into that.
And when XVFF, the Krakoa sequel to FFVX came
By
out
Zdarsky, bless.
by Zdarsky, we were all waited with bated breath for what Storm and Doom would do. And I ran a betting ring with odds.
Right.
Wow.
I was a bookkeeper. We bet using the fake currency I made up,
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Starbucks, great.
The Chip Zdarsky bucks.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of money riding on Doctor Doom and Storm having a cute island date together.
Uh,
And it doesn't really happen because XVFF is one of the worst comics I have ever read.
that's too
I
bad.
And I love Zdarsky.
I love Zdarsky
Yeah.
as well, and I will say I would not say that it's like one of the worst. I have some kind of concerns about it that this is not the time and place for it. But
No, we're already going
yeah,
over.
but I think like I was heartbroken that we did not get a little Storm and Doom something something because they're such a fun like
Right.
whenever you intersect the Fantastic Four and X-Men, that has to be just like a tradition.
Those two have to interact because not just because of the issue we're referring to, but also because they're both marginalized
Absolutely.
people who ascended to royalty.
absolutely.
And like that is always a really interesting story.
100,000%. And I feel like it's
They have that in
right.
common.
And I think Doom definitely sees that kindred spirit there. And I think an issue, like a problem that's come up in more contemporary kind of interactions, because they've met like one or two times more after this, where just like Storm is kind of so much more on the mutant, like we're mutants and you're trying to talk down to us. Like I love Al Ewing as a writer, but he revisited Claremont's kind of dinner date idea. And Storm was kind of like talking down to Doom in that way, just like, oh, you're trying to tell us what to do? Dr. Doom, we mutants, we know what we're doing. And same,
But it's like Doom is
I
Roma.
know.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, like in the recent Storm solo, even, like they make a point of like he mentions that he's Roma, but in this a kind of Machiavellian way of just like, oh, look, I get it, but not actually. I'm just like, that's such a callous way of doing it. Just like that you're saying that he would
Yeah.
be like he would use it as a manipulative tool, rather than the fact that he is objectively Roma and that informs his worldview. Like it's just so frustrating. Like let them be fun and flirty. I'm not saying they got to get married. I'm saying let them match each other's freak. Okay, please.
What a great place to end it. I love that. Let them match each other's freak is kind of the motto of this whole podcast is just match your inner freak, match others' freaks.
Absolutely.
Isn't that the driving statement of all the girlies and queerdos,
So true.
Josie?
The girlies and queerdos.
So,
Anyway,
Doc,
speaking of people who we love and people who get it, where can people find you if you want them to find your writings? Do you want them to find you, or
Sure.
you want to remain a person of
No,
mystery?
no, I'm happy to. And that's such a sweet seek. Thank you. So my handle on most places is, oh God, I'm so embarrassed. It's Faux Yeah Boy, which is like a play on faux yay, right? So it's like faux yeah, YEAHBOI. Okay, so I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on Twitter. I also, like I said, I'm working on this podcast, Doomsplained, that's going to be on Blue Sky. It's also going to be on Twitter as well. That's going to be a deep dive on Doctor Doom. And yeah, I think those are going to be kind of the best places to find me.
Great.
We will definitely let everybody know when Doomsplained
Thank
launches.
Oh,
you.
yeah.
And
Please.
I expect to be on
Oh, absolutely.
I was
Doomsplained.
just about to say,
Please.
if you don't have me on, I'm going to be really
Please, both
mad.
of you, I
So,
would
yeah.
love to have. Please, we'll make it happen.
Great.
I've
Great.
done my time.
You absolutely have.
Yeah. I've done less time with the Fantastic Four, but I've thought about Doctor Doom a whole lot in my life. So,
Yes.
anyway, Becca, where can people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Tall Girl Petunia. You can find my writing about my other special interest, The Muppets, on toughpigs.com. You can find my podcast about the Muppets and feminism in the 1970s, A Prairie Dawn Companion, at the Muppet Fan Podcasts with toughpigs.com podcast feed, wherever podcatchers are caught. And Josie, where can people find you?
Memorize this string of characters, my friends. Josie.zone, Josie.zon, as in Nancy, E. That is my Blue Sky handle. It is the URL of my website. It is my Discord handle. It's my Instagram handle. Josie.zone. You're living in the Josie zone. Well, Doc, thank you so
Of
much.
course.
Becca, what are we talking about next week?
Well, next week, and who boy, hold on to your hats.
Yeah.
Hold on to your hats
If you
be,
thought we were having some spicy convos this week,
because next week we've got another 5-issue arc to talk about, and that is Riot at Xavier's. Coming from a real Kid Omega head, I'm real excited to talk about this. So, for folks reading along with us, that is New X-Men 134 through New X-Men 138. And if you're ready to teach children about fractals, you should join us.
oh boy, it's going to be a good one, folks. And until then, just remember, burn away what doesn't work.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.